Out in the most southerly reaches of the California desert, where it straddles Arizona, just above the border of Mexico, is a place that some people would consider the middle of nowhere. It's named the center of the world, and here you'll find the Museum of the History of the World in Granite. And this is 94-year-old Jacques Estelle, originally from France, who created this place, and is one of the pioneers of parachuting, who created some of the innovations now routinely used today in skydiving. He's considered a legend of parachuting and has been called the father of American skydiving. And he hosted a gathering of some of the most renowned parachutists alive today.
My name is Moorhead, and I've been jumping for 54 years.
640 times in a space of 24 hours.
And 8 overall championships over the years and 38 world records so far.
I'm the only person on this planet that has helped develop parachutes that are on 2 other planets.
I started jumping in August 1939, just before World War II started.
Yeah, we're here to induct my dad into the Hall of Fame.
These are the brave and daring men and women who risked life and limb, the adventurers, the record setters, the pioneers of parachuting who helped create what we now know today as the sport of skydiving. These are the people who delight in jumping from airplanes and plummeting to Earth at 120 miles per hour. These are the legends of the fall.
Rockhopper here, and today I'm going to take you to the center of the world, the history of the world in granite, and we're going to be the pioneers of parachuting.
Jacques-André Estelle is one of the pioneers of parachuting, and skydiving is what it is today, in large part due to his innovations. Jacques hosted a gathering of the pioneers of parachuting here at his creation, called the Center of the World, where you'll find the history of the world etched in granite. I came here to film the pioneers of the parachuting world, the record setters, the record holders, the free-fall kings and queens of the sky. Within the pyramid, one can stand at the center of the world.
Let's have a look inside the pyramid. Here you can stand in what they term the official center of the world, like Hunter here is doing. Woohoo! Come out and see us. Being that Jacques is from France, don't be surprised if you see some French touches about the property, like these steps that were some of the originals off the Eiffel Tower.
There's a small church on a hill here, and across the property you'll see long slabs of granite that's etched with pictures and text explaining the history of the world. These slabs have been etched with the history of skydiving, and some of the people you're about to meet feature prominently on them.
My name is Moorhead, and I've been jumping for 54 years. I have almost 6,700 jumps.
And you started way back when. What year do you recall?
I actually started skydiving in 1969. I was a fireman in the Los Angeles area at that time, and we were sitting in the fire station looking at skydiving at Lake Elsinore, California, and 5 of us decided we wanted to make our first jump, so we did.
Now, being that you were in the kind of the earlier stages of parachuting, were there any close calls that you encountered?
Nothing serious, but you have to learn in our sport to take care of issues that come up while you're skydiving, so anything that might be considered a close call does not turn into a disaster.
Right, so damage control.
Damage control right from the get-go, and it's never ending. Today is Safety Day, happens to be March 12th, and across the nation, different drop zones that belong to the U.S. Parachute Association, drop zone group, are holding safety days, and they do all sorts of reminders, teach you how to respond to emergencies, and so it's never ending. We're always looking for better ways to have fun and survive. I've been fortunate enough to jump all over the world. We've jumped in downtown Tokyo, we've jumped in Switzerland, and Italy, and Germany, and France, and South America, all over the United States, New Zealand, Australia. My wife and I are both jumpers. We met on a skydiving airplane in 39 years ago now, and we travel, and we still travel.
And that's his wife right there.
Alicia Moorhead. I started in 1978 in Hinckley, Illinois. Then went to Australia, moved there, jumped in Australia, and then moved to California where we met.
So do you guys think that skydiving could be an addictive sport?
I think that's a strong term. I've always thought of skydivers are sort of like downhill skiers or even bowlers. You find something that you really, really enjoy doing it, and more importantly, to most skydivers, if not all, is the people that you do the sport with. And if you find people with like-minded ideas about skydiving and that are having fun in the sky, then it's all good stuff from there. You can't go wrong. So it's not addictive. It's good stuff and we like doing it with our friends.
And I've found from being here and talking to all these people, there's a wonderful camaraderie that takes place here. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
It's amazing. And in fact, there's once in a while we remind ourselves about how lucky we are to have friends that we're that tight with for that length of time. I'm having dinner this evening here in Philly City, California with people I've known for over 50 years, fellow skydivers. They're still jumping. They belong to the different sub-organizations of jumpers over 70, jumpers over 80, jumpers over 90. So the camaraderie goes on and on. You know, sometimes we have a hard time explaining that to people because they don't have a sport of their own. Skydiving now is safer than it's ever been, and it continues to get safer and safer as time goes by because that's what we're all about. We want to be around to enjoy our sport. Unfortunately, sometimes things are sensationalized. If there's an accident or a mishap of some kind, whether it be a fatality or just a bad injury, that makes news. Unfortunately, people get their impressions sort of skewered by that kind of bad news. If you went out to the skydiving center any given day, you would know that that's not what it's all about. And once you made your first jump, you'd be among very few people in this world that have jumped out of a perfectly good airplane and really had fun doing it.
I know what you mean, because I did jump out of a perfectly good airplane. This is Jay Stokes, and he's going to tell us something amazing about what he's done in the skydiving world.
I had the opportunity, with the help of 125 of my closest friends, to get out of an airplane 640 times in a space of 24 hours. And it is currently still in the Guinness Book as a world record for most jumps in 24 hours. As I said, 125 people were helping. Packers, people to help me get in gear, get out of gear, airplane pilots, people to get me on the airplane, safety's on board. It was just what a show, what a deal. It was great.
And so it sounds like it was a very big involvement. I mean, you had an entire crew going on, and you just had to really make this happen. Were there any times when you felt like you were delayed?
Here's the thing. With all the help that we had, it was the 5th time we had attempted it. The other 4 times were also successful for Guinness World Records. The 5th time was kind of a charm with the 640 jumps. We did have one glitch, and that was about 22 hours into the event where I was trying to use the bathroom on the plane, and the pilot decided that I needed a little more time, so he extended his pattern a little bit. So when I left the airplane at the appropriate altitude, I was a little bit off the field. I wasn't where I needed to be because I didn't look down before I exited. It took about 10 minutes to recover from that and get back to the airport. This is 2006, so no cell phones, things like that, so I couldn't let anybody know I was okay. When I did get back, 10 minutes later, I told everybody I was okay, dropped my stuff, ran back outside, put another rig on, and got back on the airplane, and we just kept marching. So it worked out really good. But it was very tense 10 minutes because nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew whether I was alive or dead. But it worked. It all came out.
But it all worked out in the end.
It did.
Well, that is an incredible feat. So, yeah, thank you for telling me about that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just that, you know, we're all in this together. It's just amazing how skydiving brings a lot of different people together from different walks of life. It's kind of like well, we can establish rapport with other people. It doesn't matter what their skill level is. It doesn't matter what their race, creed, color. It doesn't matter. We're in it as a group. We love each other, and we're always willing to do things for each other. And I can't say enough good things about what the sport's done for me over the years.
Yeah, I'm sure it's made you a better person in some ways even.
In a lot of ways, it's made me a better person. I did 24 years in the Army, and that developed a lot of discipline in me and some other things, but in reality, I mean, I've been able to have a little more patience and enjoy life to the fullest with the people that I now call my skydiving friends.
This is Roy Fox, and he's won some races and developed parachutes for NASA. Tell me about that.
I began as an Army paratrooper. That's where I learned a little bit about parachutes. And I was just extremely interested in parachutes. And when I got out of the Army, I had a job waiting for me. It was a good job. Most people thought it was a good job. I hated it. But I started a little weekend skydiving operation, which helped me keep my sanity. And so then I was always experimenting with parachutes. We were just jumping surplus military parachutes back in those days. It was the early 60s. And eventually that led into me getting into the business for developing parachutes for military purposes and for aerospace purposes. So I've done lots of work for military, NASA, and the aerospace companies. When I say aerospace companies, I'm talking about companies that send parachutes to the International Space, or send capsules to the International Space Station, and then they come back with parachutes.
Okay, so you developed the only parachutes for Mars and Jupiter? What was that?
No, so no one person does that sort of thing. Typically, it's always a team. But I'm the only person on this planet that has helped develop parachutes that are on 2 other planets. Parachutes and hardware. As far as the races are concerned, I like to do endurance type things because I'm not fast enough to do a real marathon. So I do things where hard-headedness is more important than speed. So I have done the Bataan Death March Marathon in honor of my father, who was in the Philippines in that area when the real Death March occurred. And so I've entered it twice in the 35-pound pack class. They had 2 categories, either with a pack or without a pack. And I won it both times for the individual male carrying a 35-pound pack through 26.2 miles of sand dunes in New Mexico. I began life as a skydiver, so I've been skydiving for over 60 years. And but early in my career, I guess I'll call it, I got started in designing parachutes for military purposes and aerospace purposes. I have 15 identical parachutes that are used for these 24-hour records. And I jokingly tell people that my parachutes have only been used 3 times. One for when Pat Moorhead set his world records, one for when Stokes set his world records, and one when I set my world record. But anyhow, Pat did 80 jumps on his 80th birthday using my parachutes. Jay's up to like 640 in one day using my parachutes, and I did 386 one day. So Pat has the world record for over 80, the world record for over 90. I have the world record for over 60, and Jay has the world record for everything. All 3 of us are here today.
This is Clifford Dobson, and he has some amazing stories to tell about his parachuting experiences.
I've been to 9 world meets and 8 overall championships over the years, and 38 world records so far, so I've been doing pretty good.
I would say so. 38 is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and 61 years coming up. I've got 9,585 jumps. Trying to get to my goal, which has always been 10,000. I did my 100th jump. When I did 100, I'd come home for the summer and went up and jumped with one of my brothers, but we got a picture of the 4 of us boys. We're only 4.5 years apart, and did the jump. It was my 100th. My mom says, well, you got 100 jumps, you got more than anybody that I know, and you're going to quit now, right? And I go, oh no, Stan Searles down in Omaha, Nebraska just did his 1,000th jump. And she goes, oh my God. She never asked me about quitting again. Wasn't going to happen. So yeah, I've been pretty much all over the world because of skydiving has helped me go. And you know, the 9 World Championships, I was lucky enough to be on a 4-way team that won. The Omaha Wahoo team won first place in RW, 4-way RW, when they first started the first year. And the next year, with just a few practice jumps, we got 3rd place. And because of that, we got to go to Transpo and be on the star team, which was a big deal. You know, probably the biggest, best air show ever in the United States for sure. It's a big deal. We had a great time. A lot of the people here were some of the people that were there on the teams from California and stuff. So that gives us a connection to people that didn't think that we could ever do anything. There's enough talent in the Midwest to do 8-way and 10-way and stuff like that. And that kind of upset us a little bit when they told us that Jerry Bird's team told us that there was no talent in the Midwest. So that next Easter, that was at the Nationals. At Easter that year, we went out and 3rd jump we did our 8-way, and then we jumped for 3 or 4 weeks. We did up to 10, 11, 12 jumps, you know, people in a round. So showed them we had some talent out there in Nebraska too.
Well, describe for some of the viewers, when you refer to 8-way, tell them what that means exactly.
It's we get out of the aircraft and you have to dive down. I was 8th and 9th on most of the jumps, and you dive down. The guys are quite a ways down, so you're diving down. And the first day we did it was Easter. It was freezing at altitude, and we get on the ground after the 2nd jump. We had blood streaks in our face from the sleet actually hitting our face, and we're diving through it, so our heads are down. Got in and docked on the thing, and we're holding hands, so it's what we call a round. They call it a star or a round. It could be either way. And then the formations over the years have gotten big. I mean, 400 people is a huge one now. I wasn't doing that kind of RW at that time. My son was doing quite a few. He'd been on the 217 record. And I took over the Budweiser skydiving team in 1979, and I made my last jump with them last December 31st. Did a demo out on the beach in Clearwater Beach. So jumped into every major stadium in the United States. I've never considered myself a pioneer, but I'm in that age group, and in a sense, I guess probably we are pioneers because we did a lot of stuff. I started my own drop zone, and one of the first things I did was we went to piggyback systems instead of B4s and 28 and 35 footers, and put PCs in everybody's rig, and everybody saying, "Oh, you're going to kill everybody," and never killed anybody, never had an injury. And as soon as I could, I went to LOPO reserves from Strong Enterprises and their strong piggyback system. And then I started doing squares for mains. And everybody thought, "Oh, you're going to kill her." Well, what are you jumping? You're jumping square. Well, in those days, a lot of people still had round reserves. And I kept saying, someday you're going to look up in the sky and you're not going to see any round parachutes. They're all going to be square. And if somebody has a malfunction, they're probably going to have a square reserve. And so I was the first drop zone in the United States to have double squares in the rigs. That was way back in 1980, 81. And everybody just thought, "Oh, you're nuts, you're going to go to hell for doing all this stuff." And it turned out that was the right thing. That's what everybody's doing now. I've got friends now all over the world just from competition. You know, I can go almost virtually any country, major country in the world, and somebody's going to know me, and I know them, and they're good friends and stuff. So it's really, for me, it's just been a connection with other people, and history is there. But we got to do stuff like this to keep the history, because we're losing it. Started looking at this guy, and his badge kind of flipped around, and it was written in hand, and it says Andy. And I looked again, and it's Andy Keach. Best history books of old-time skydiving we could ever ask for.
This is Andy Keach, and he's one of the pioneers of skydiving photography. Tell us a bit about that, Andy.
I started jumping in August 1939, just before World War II started. In the course of these jumps, I was just so taken by what it looks like to see another body in freefall, maneuvering right up to oneself. And I thought, well, Australia had 10 million people, and there's only 2 of us that had seen these sights. And almost immediately I decided I had to jump cameras in order to bring these images to the ground. My jump partner and I had competed in the Australian Nationals, and we took 1st and 2nd place. I happened to be first place. So I was national champion at a very early stage in jumping. But my interest was really in this working together in the air, in free fall with another fellow to take pictures, and preferably several other people. And we had just started a club in my hometown, and so I went back and brought these new recruits into our club to learn to fly, first with myself and then to fly with each other. So the population was becoming sort of explosive in a small way, that we could get more than one person in the frame at the time. And as time went on, the photography and the lessons learned from experience, learned from not knowing about certain things, that I became more predictable on the production of images. And so I thought that if these images are to last, that I should have them in print. And at the time we were friendly with the local newspaper, and we had an agreement that if we could use their darkroom, we would leave any suitable photographs for their paper. So it was a mutual benefit agreement. And then as the formations became bigger and more interesting, I decided to make a book of these images, and that project took 4 years. It was the most stressful and interesting and creative time for me, because we were doing formations that had never been flown before. There was one called Starship Enterprise, which was made of two formations. One was called the Butterfly, which was a single person at the center of the formation with three people plugged into the side. So it would be from the knee to the shoulder. There would be three people on each side. And so that made a platform. And the intention of the platform was to support yet another jumper who would fly in from the rear and stand and crouch on the butterfly, on the center of the butterfly, and then stand up. So in the meantime, there was another group of three that flew with a Y. The two fellows docked on the knees, and the man in front was to make contact with this individual standing on the formation. And I had to travel from the east coast of the States, where we tried it 2 times, to the west coast for another group of equally highly experienced people to pull this off before we did. And so finally we photographed the Starship Enterprise. And that's 40 years ago from now, and it hasn't been done since.
So Roy just told me you have 29 world records.
Being a jump pilot, and a jumper, I was very interested in slow movement through the air, because that allows you to steer the parachute onto a target, whereas any high-speed things makes it more difficult. So being close to zero speed, it had a great appeal to me, and the aircraft that do best at that are rotorcraft. There's 2 types of aircraft in rotorcraft. One has a powered rotor, which is a helicopter. The other has an unpowered rotor, and it's called an autogyro. And the blade is turned by the fact that it's passing through the air. The air coming through the rotor disc spins it up. But you require an engine to push it or pull it through the air. And the design that got rotorcraft off the ground was an autogyro with the engine in the front. And they launched helicopters at the end of the 30s. That was about the time I was born. well, we decided, my friend and I, he was an aircraft designer and a manufacturer, and he was a top-notch auto-gyro pilot. We designed one to fit myself. It was like putting a glove on it. It didn't have any wasted anything, but it was aluminum tube with fabric on it, and I had a high-performance engine, a light high-performance engine. It was turbocharged, so we could go to extreme altitudes with it. So we decided to revisit that design that had been extinct for 30 years by that time, and see how it would perform with modern power plant and materials. And so it was much smaller than the normal one, so it was sleeker. It had a smaller frontal area to it, and we spent 2 years building this and started flying it, and learned some unfortunate lessons. I wrecked it the first time I tried to take it off the ground. I got a case of a treating blade stall, which is something they teach you about, but you don't grasp the significance till it all goes wrong. Well, it went wrong, and the aircraft went on its side, the blades were busted up, and my heart was broken. And anyway, we straightened it out, put it back together again, and I'd learnt a lesson and started flying it again. And because it was performing so well, better than we had even hoped for, that it came to us that this could raise the performance, the recorded performance of this design. And there are 4 measures in aviation. They're boiled down to 2. One is distance and one is speed. Now in the vertical, that's time to climb and altitude. So you've got speed and distance in the horizontal, time and altitude in the vertical. So we decided to run a series of attempts on all 4. And over the following 2 years, we addressed every one of them. The aircraft went to 26,508. It was 8 feet above 5 miles up, and it set the time to climb record, and it set speed and distance record. So we had all 4. And since the Wright brothers, there's only been 2 people who have had all 4. So we were pretty chuffed that we were one of them. Oh yeah, we set the 3 transcontinental speed records with this machine. We flew from east to west. Matter of fact, we took off from Kitty Hawk, where the Wright brothers made their first flights in history, and we went to San Diego, and then so that's east to west. Then we went west to east, so you get east to west to east, and round trip. So there are 3 different times that go into record making. To be considered from coast to coast, you could start inland 100 kilometres, so it's like 60 miles. So you don't really cover the whole country. So, but that's a rule they made to account for people that didn't have an airport that was near the ocean. You could be inland a little bit, at least for those 60 miles. I didn't want to do it from shore to shore. I wanted to do it from ocean to ocean. So when I took off from Kitty Hawk, I flew out, it's right by the coast. I flew three waves, 3 breaking waves out into the Atlantic, and turned around and came over to the Pacific and went 3 broken waves into the Pacific before I came back and landed in San Diego, so that there'd never be any argument about it being all 3. just so when you spend so much effort preparing for this, you make sure you don't miss out on anything. It's so expensive in all measures. So anyway, it was a good time.
As you stroll around the grounds, you can see the history of parachuting written on the granite, as well as learn much about the history of the world. There's the history of Arizona and the West, animals, a little about just about everything etched on the stones. I'm here with Marty Jones, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on here with the induction ceremony and some of the skydiving and all the jumps he's done and his fascinating life that he's had.
We're here to induct my dad into in the Hall of Fame, hence his plaque. Ta-da. And so this is basically a 6-decade legacy. He was one of the founding pioneers of everything that's going on, and you know, the crazy old man had a tendency of doing crazy things and leaning forward and pioneering. So he kicked me out of an airplane when I was 13 years old, and here I am 14,000 skydives later.
So tell me a bit about your dad and some of the skydiving he's done in his lifetime.
Yeah, well, Dad started was a static line jump, and I believe it's 1955.
So he was kind of one of the pioneers of parachuting.
Most definitely. We're the first commercial business to actually take tandem and turn it into what it is today. He was also very much an innovator. He was the first person I ever saw that actually took the reserve parachute from the front and put it on the back into what we call the piggyback configuration, which is industry standard now.
I would have liked to have spoken to Jacques more, but he was very busy with interviews and keeping everything organized that day. On that day, there were probably more world record holders and those with world's first achievements than any place else on Earth. I contributed to that, as I have 2 world's first accomplishments to my name. With so many other adventurous spirits around me, I felt as though I'd found my tribe. We could all share in the spirit of adventure and swap tales of our exploits and experiences. We understood each other. As far as we were concerned, no one here was crazy, just adventurous. We did these things out of a thirst for adventure and a lust for life, knowing that we simply couldn't be like everyone else. It was an inner calling that we had to heed, breaking free of any boundaries and setting out to do what our hearts desired. And that's all that really mattered. As you go through life and ponder decisions, ask yourself if you want to satisfy what others think about you, or if you want to strive for excellence and achieve greatness. Some might think that we thumb our noses at societal norms, and maybe we do, but we're just living our passion, living our dreams, and living our truth. We're living and experiencing the ultimate edge of an exciting journey of this thing called life. Coming up in part 2, we meet the lofty ladies of the sky who dared to be different in a time when it wasn't fashionable for women to jump from airplanes.
I started jumping in 1959.
Tell us a bit about your life and everything you've done, Ann.
I'm going to be 80 in a month, so I got a lot to tell.
This is Nancy, another pioneer of skydiving, and she's also on the wall, and you can see her name right there. I hope you enjoyed coming to the center of the world with me and meeting the pioneers of parachuting. Don't forget to give me a like on the video, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Rockhopper. I'll see ya.